Hi, this is Dan Muchnock with Opticom Consulting, and welcome to our free video series on frequently asked questions in telecom. The question in this video concerns the Voice over IP technology. The question is, I've been hearing a lot about Voice over IP, and I was wondering whether I should consider that technology for my business. Voice over IP, or VoIP, is a technology available in many modern telecommunications systems that enables a firm to use their data network to carry voice traffic. The term IP stands for Internet Protocol, which is the language that computers use to communicate over the Internet. Voice over IP is a technology for converting voice communications into digital packets for delivery over a data network. Most commonly, that data network is the Internet, but it could be any data network running the Internet Protocol, such as a business's private data network. What makes VoIP different is that it relies on the Internet Protocol for these tasks rather than the proprietary phone company protocols. Since it is based on a widely available technology, it can be made available to the general public more cheaply. Also, the nationwide build-out of broadband networks has made Internet access available almost everywhere, enabling businesses to connect their locations through the Internet rather than building expensive private data networks. All these factors have converged during the last decade to make VoIP an inexpensive option for most businesses. There are three primary advantages to using VoIP in your business: cost, features, and flexibility. Cost savings. Making calls using VoIP is generally less expensive than making calls over the public telephone network because it's a much more efficient technology. To illustrate the economics, consider that a single set of wires connecting your business to the phone company. Under the old analog model, a single conversation will tie up that pair of wires for the entire duration of the call. However, if that same pair of wires is running DSL, and you're using that connection to make VoIP calls, you can make several simultaneous calls on the same set of wires. You can stuff more over the same connection because digital technology only uses bandwidth when somebody is actually speaking, and most conversations have natural pauses between speakers. And the network can carry data traffic at the same time. In fact, the economics of VoIP can be even better when you consider that most businesses already have extensive data networks. If the network has sufficient excess capacity, a business can use VoIP to send a lot of its voice traffic over the data network that it already owns. What's more, if a company has a wide area network connecting multiple locations, it can carry voice traffic between company locations for almost no additional cost. New features. In the service provider model, where a business is buying VoIP service from a vendor, the vendor is able to offer many features and functions that were previously available only on the most expensive PBX systems. Features like Find Me, Follow Me, remote call forwarding, universal messaging, and many other sophisticated features are applications of digital technology and can be offered even to small businesses. For example, VoIP would enable a small business to have one set of numbers and to dial remote offices as if they were on the same phone system as headquarters. Many of these features can be configured over the Internet, offering features and flexibility previously unavailable to the small and medium-sized business market. Configuration flexibility. For businesses that own their own communications equipment, VoIP makes the configuration of the equipment much more flexible, and it adds some unique features not available with analog technology. A VoIP phone carries with it its own identity, called a MAC or hardware address. This identity can be used by a VoIP-enabled PBX to locate the phone anywhere within the corporate network. Using this technology, relocating an extension within the corporate walls does not require very much configuration. In many cases, you simply plug the phone into its new location. In addition, the PBX can be set to look for a phone outside the company walls on the Internet. This allows small remote offices or home workers to have extensions on the corporate voice network by simply attaching the phone to the Internet. Like any new technology, VoIP is not without some disadvantages versus analog communications. The analog phone network has been continuously improved for more than a century for high quality and reliability. Even though VoIP is catching up quickly, it still lags the analog network in quality and reliability. Also, VoIP connections can suffer from equipment compatibility issues. Call quality. One of the primary disadvantages of VoIP is call quality. The technology for digitizing voice and sending it over a data network is very similar to the technology used in digital cell phones, and it is subject to some of the same issues. Clipping, where parts of the conversation drop out, is a common occurrence when the network bandwidth is getting tight. Calls can be disconnected when a connection drops. Finally, network latency can create some call quality issues like echo. Most call quality issues can be eliminated with proper planning for bandwidth and quality of service routing, where voice traffic is given priority over data traffic on the same network. VoIP is a very reliable technology and is getting more reliable all the time, but like digital cell phones, it is still not entirely equal to the dedicated voice network. Reliability. The analog phone systems were built to be available 99.99% of the time, in any weather and in just about any conceivable situation. The old analog phones actually received their power from the phone company, requiring no external power source. If you lose electrical power in a rainstorm and you have an analog phone connected directly to a phone jack, you can still make phone calls. The same is not true of VoIP technology. If you lose power, you're going to lose phone service unless you have battery backup for your network equipment. All the downtime problems that your business has experienced with your data service or power service will now be applicable to your voice service. The phone companies have been doing such a good job for decades that people generally aren't used to long outages of their phone service. What this really means is that if you can't tolerate that level of outage, but you still want to take advantage of VoIP, you need to spend some time planning for backup and redundancy of your service, planning that used to be done on your behalf by the phone service provider. Equipment issues. Although many implementations of VoIP, especially small office home office implementations, are configured to allow the client to use their existing telephones, older PBXs or fax equipment that is not specifically designed to work over a digital connection will often have trouble using the VoIP connection. This is due to the fact that analog equipment is designed to use analog signals to manage a call, and a rough VoIP connection can be misinterpreted as a dropped call. On a bad day, you might find yourself dealing with calls that keep dropping or having to retry faxes again and again. This can be frustrating in practice and damaging to your business, so we typically recommend keeping at least one analog line for your fax machine or moving to an internet fax service. In addition, if you have an older PBX and you are thinking of moving your business to VoIP or cable analog lines, which actually use some of the same technology, you should consider testing or upgrading your equipment before committing. These recommendations can mitigate the frustration of VoIP while still allowing a business to take advantage of the cost savings. There are a few things to consider before you switch your service to VoIP. How stable is your internet connection? Your communications will be going out on that connection, so if it goes up and down frequently, then you won't have improved anything with the switch. If it's stable, then at least it won't be adding problems. Most phone system vendors have products that support VoIP, but the SIP protocol standard is a little loose, and it is possible that there are SIP providers who will not be supported by your phone system. If you get to the point of looking for a SIP trunking provider, you should definitely talk to your phone system vendor about which service to go with. If you have a manufacturer-approved SIP vendor, then you know your system will support the protocol and you won't get hung out to dry for support if there are any issues. Make sure the SIP provider supports number portability, and then have them check your numbers specifically before you sign any contracts. You don't want to lose your phone numbers or have to do some workaround like remote call forwarding. Some SIP providers require you to buy their T1 and they will not ride your existing internet connection. The rationale is that they can't guarantee performance over a connection that they do not control, and there is some planning that has to go into your connection and your bandwidth. However, network capacity is becoming more of a commodity, and you can certainly price shop among the vendors on the manufacturer-approved list. Another thing to consider is that most SIP providers charge for inbound calls, people calling you, in addition to outbound calls, much like the minutes on your cell phone. If you are trying to price things out, make sure you estimate your inbound calling as well as outbound so you don't get a big surprise on your first bill. The good news is that if you keep the same phone system, you won't have to switch your desk sets. You will be swapping out your external connection, but your internal connections will all be the same. You can buy VoIP handsets for some applications like a remote or home office, but you shouldn't have to replace the sets in your main location. That being said, however, you will almost certainly need to make some changes to your current phone system or even replace it altogether. Some systems support VoIP out of the box, but most don't, and they will require some new hardware and/or software to do so. Your phone system vendor will be able to outline any changes required to your system to support VoIP. Choosing VoIP is a business decision. The decision depends on your judgment as to whether the gain in cost savings and flexibility is worth the risk in call quality and reliability. Even though VoIP is being touted as the next big thing in telecommunications, a business should really consider it just another tool in the box, able to solve some problems but not others. What is certain is that for business, moving to VoIP is not a simple decision, and careful planning is required to mitigate the risk of moving services to a new technology. This has been Dan Muchnock with Opticom Consulting, discussing voice over IP and how it might help your organization. If you would like more information on this topic and other topics that will help to demystify telecommunications for you, please sign up for our free video series at telecomdemystified.com. Thank you.